Okay, so Kimberly already touched on this, the series that'll be coming up over the next 4 months. So I won't touch on that any further, aside from highlighting, at the start of this this journey here, and we're excited to keep it going here. Okay, so through this period and this crisis, it's really highlighted this principle that I've always subscribed to, and I hope many of you as well, is that safe business is good business. And when you go from left to right, you think of yes, it's the right thing to do. When you start to think about this crisis has really highlighted how how we behave and how we manage our businesses can affect our family, frontline workers, our teams, and customers, right? And then at the same time, doing this and doing this well really allows us to manage some of our downside risks, right? Just consider an outbreak, or if you're doing some restarts, and potentially with the second wave implications of misses, right? So maybe as I chat for a second here, participants, maybe you can pop into the chat. What would it mean if there was an outbreak in your operation? Just 1 or 2 words, if you can pop in the chat, what would that mean to you, right? What does that mean to the operation? And then the third piece is just around thriving. I've popped up some recent, some recent data points here on the right, from Salesforce surveyed about 20,000 people and employees, and their top concern was workplace safety, 79%. Right. And, you can see how that plays out through, employee satisfaction, retention. And then further on down, it's I just grabbed the graph from a McKinsey article just around highlighting how, doing safety well, organizations that do financial and operate well also, in general, perform well on the safety side. So all to say, it really does, pay off to really do this well, because in many, irrespective, we're going to have to do, manage this, especially in this environment. So let's do it well to get the maximum payback around our, people protection investments. So, hey, Brad, what are some highlights on the chat side? I know I see a few chats in there. I'll try to navigate over there, but my chat window is not coming up. There we go. Let's see. You know what? Oh, you're on mute, Brad. Sorry.
So the chats are really sharing. Most people are small teams. If they were to have an outbreak, it would be devastating. It would have a huge negative effect on their organizations and their teams.
Yeah, and no surprise, right? And old adage, an ounce of prevention. What is it? Ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. All right. So really doing some of this stuff right is makes a big difference, and sort of being prepared too, right? So should something hit, you have processes to sort of nip things in the bud. Okay. So we're gonna I want to get a sense of the audience and where you're at. So I'm gonna run a poll. You'll see these 4 questions pop up, and please just respond to them, and then we'll kind of go from there. It talks about you can read it. It talks about preparedness, talks about hazard assessment and control, talks a bit about, hey, have you ever considered or promoted the good things that you're doing around people protection and leveraged it to to share how that's an advantage for your business. And then lastly, do you have some specific actions that you're working or continue to work? So please go ahead and enter your responses to the 4 questions. Okay, we've got 4 respondents so far. There's 4 more to go. Hey, Brad, while we're just waiting for this to finish, one thing I just remembered, and Jen's in the background, were we planning to record the session? And if not, that's fine.
I think it'd be great if we could.
Can you check
Jen?
to see if you can? With
yeah, it's recording now.
Okay,
it is.
Excellent. Thank you. Multitasking. See. Okay, we've got 3 more respondents. So for those of you on, if you could share your thoughts. That would be wonderful. We'll give it another 10 seconds here. 2 more respondents left. Okay, well, let's go with what we got, and I will end polling and then share the results so everybody can see them. So you see with the first one about just preparedness, you know, so 2/3, it's good. And familiar with hazard assessment control of only about 1/3. So we'll delve into that a little further and maybe lift some thoughts up around that space, and then promoting it again 2/3 or 1/3. So we'll touch on that too. And then lastly, do you have some specific actions? I think I guess about half of you do. Okay, so terrific. And we'll touch on these themes, and we'll come back with some specific toolkits at the end and links to help you prop those up as you wish. Okay. All right, so, okay, so as I'd mentioned, in terms of the different themes that we're hoping to touch on here in the next 70 minutes or so, the first one is around finding opportunities, and here are some different tools we wanted to share with you. What you're looking at here, and you'll get familiar with this sort of format because Brad and I developed a couple of different checklists. This is one focused on people protection, but Brad and Rob will touch on another one more around just business operations and business considerations for thriving, but in the same format. It's really intended as something to trigger some thoughts around key aspects of is this something that applies to your operation, and are you doing anything about it? And if not, should you? Just to set up the framework for the people protection piece, there's 3 sections, but on the right-hand side, you'll see scenario 1, 2, and 3, or 2 and black swan. Those are columns that allow you to do some scenario planning, right? What is the high scenario? What is the a low scenario, or what was maybe a wave 1 scenario, and what should you think about for scenario 2 as wave 2 is coming around the corner, and then black swan is for unexpected high catastrophic type events that is really difficult to plan for. So that runs throughout the checklist. This particular checklist, the people checklist, the intent is for you to scan through the items, but not necessarily do every one, but again, really reflect on, do we have this? Is it important? And should we do something about this? Right. So it's broken up into 3 sections. The first section is entitled sort of anticipate. It's about, do you have your plan? Is it live, or is it on a shelf somewhere? Have you dusted it off? Have you practiced it? Is it actually going to work? Right. And if you've done the planning, terrific. And hopefully, again, I think 2/3 of you said you have. Then the second section is around respond. This is tied to ARM, ARM acronym. The second section for R is around fixing. It's about, have you activated teams, or have you engaged people that you need to help you respond and control, or do some of the things the government's expecting you to do, right? And there's some specific things in here that trigger that, or tag, put triggers in there for you to consider. And we'll talk definitely more about specific things to consider around controlling and complying it, but also going above and beyond to differentiate with, all right? And then the last section of the checklist is monitor. So the M piece of ARM, and it's about sustaining. It's about, in essence, maybe the last few months where, okay, we've started the first wave, we started some reopening. Now you really need to, stay engaged and monitor developments, whether it's guidance from the government, because things are constantly changing, or just changes from even, maybe how your customers are engaging, or the sentiments there. Whatever the case might be, this is the section around monitoring and then pivoting as appropriate to adjust your plan, or to adjust your corrective actions. Okay. And the last thing here is you'll see a list of resources. There's a whole library that Brad had touched on. Some of these are specific to these various items. And the other thing is, each of these items where there's an underline, it's actually a live link to some specific resources. Okay. All right. So that's the first part. a checklist to really help. Continuing on the finding theme, right, to identify and uncover, what are opportunities and how to protect folks. This is the, page just on the general guidance in Alberta, right? The link is there to the workplace guidance for business owners. I mean, high level, it touches on communications, it touches on, what are things you need to do should, an individual, on your team or, customer or volunteer identifies that they may be potentially, infected, right? And then a third section around, this is a big chunk of it around, what are the prevention measures, some of which, you hear and you see and you're very intimate with by now, right? From personal protective equipment to distancing to, hygiene, right? But what I'd say is, there's, this is one resource, but there are others, and I put those in the bottom, some global ones from OSHA to WHO to CDC, the National Safety Council, that you can leverage. This is more general guidance. What I would say though is in the orange text there, hazard assessment. It's required, right? It's really recommended that you do this because it allows you to hone in on, instead of needle in the haystack trying to do everything, focus on, what's most important to your type of operation, so you can identify what are the, highest potential risk activities and exposure activities, so you can target and focus and spend more effort around, enveloping and putting layers of defenses around those instead of, everything under the sun, because you got to start somewhere and you want to start where the worst first, right? And you want to hit those the hardest. This next slide, Alberta Business Connect, and hopefully you will have seen these and have looked at this. So this is more industry specific, right? There's 20 plus different specific industry focused guidance at this link, right? From retail to personal services to restaurants and different types of businesses, because it requires different different controls. Right, if you're in personal services, it highlights, how do you manage if you're a face-to-face type operation, the flow of customers, right, interactions there. How do you protect your employees? How do you look at layout? To the other things, such as hygiene and people, personal protective equipment and so forth. So this is another an additional reference that to leverage on top of the general guidance. And here also at this website, they also have a blank or a template plans that you can take, from the guidance and populate to sort of customize and create your own, right? And I think that's really helpful. The last comment here is this AHA link. This is, I'm part of the Global Industrial Hygienists Organization, 80-year-old organization focused on protecting people, in particular on the exposure side, right? So they've got some great guidance, and again, industry specific guidance there that you can also leverage beyond the Alberta stuff. Okay. All right. So that's kind of finding, right? The last bit of finding is I touched on hazard assessment being really important to help you zero in and sharpen your focus around, where to spend your time when it comes to people protection. So this is a very simple template, right? From the Alberta regulators, but this is how you would typically, whittle down to sort of what are some controls, right? You identify from the left, find, think of the key tasks that may apply to a particular hazard. You identify some of your hazards, and then you think of, well, how can I, address those hazards through taking some action, right? That's a very high level hazard assessment. Now, for SARS-CoV-2, this is what I'd suggest you do, because we already know the hazard we're trying to target, right, is coronavirus. So I'd work backwards a bit. With that in mind, what are some of the tasks that drive you or your people to have close contact with either the public or customers or, other potentially sick individuals or infected individuals, right? Or what are other, activities where you have high touch time with surfaces to, depending on the nature of your business, and most of you probably wouldn't, but if you're in the healthcare space or some other space where there's actually procedures that generate a lot of aerosols, dental, and of course in the hospitals and the healthcare space, there's some additional considerations, right? Because those are, higher risk activities, right? But from there, from identifying some of these tasks, then that gives you opportunity to look at, well, what are the types of jobs, what are type of positions where my higher risk activities occur, and who does them, and how do they do them, right? Because from there, you can then zero in on, well, this is, I think if we do this, this, and this, these three things, I feel pretty good about, how I've protected my people. Okay, so that gets us to the end of sort of the finding segment, and I'll ask Brad to help us through a breakout and some discussion. Now you guys got to do some work. Go ahead, Brad.
Excellent. Thanks, Ken. So the process that we go through, the sessions that we're doing, we call them network shops, because we find that there's a lot of business people. Most of the time, those of you who are here participating have your own experiences, your own training. Everyone's got, valuable insights to share. And so the other aspect of these is kind of the networking and the idea sharing and exchange. And plus, during these times when we're isolating, this ability to kind of engage with others and have some interesting interactions is kind of psychologically and emotionally really supportive of us. So the process we're going to go through is going to break out into two groups. Rob will facilitate one group, I'll facilitate the other. We're going to get one person participating to basically give a report back when we gather back together. So we'll set that up. And then before we start our discussion, there's a focal question here. So the question Ken wants you to think about is, what are two higher potential close contact exposure tasks at your operation? So we're not going to start a discussion for 2 minutes. I want you to think about your operation and answer that question for yourself. And then we're going to kind of go around the group, and everyone's going to hear from each other. And then we're going to see if there's a pattern and kind of chat with each other in terms of what we've heard and what are the implications for that. And then when we're done, we'll jump back in and we'll share as one group. Okay. So Jen, do you want to launch the two groups?
Sure, I will get that set up right now.
Super.
Yeah, so as you're thinking of your contact exposures, right? Think of the last slide, right? What are the close contacts, high touch, right? Other activities.
Okay, are you ready if I open the rooms now?
Yep,
please.
So for all of us, just you'll get an invite, join your breakout group, and away.
Ken is okay in breakout room 2 or 1? Does it make a difference?
No, I'm good because I can hop back and forth. So
okay, perfect.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, what we will do though, Jen, is we need to bring either Brad or Rob over. I think, did everybody?
I have Brad in room 1 and Robert in room 2.
Okay. I don't know why they're not coming over. I don't see them.
Ken, it says not joined by your name.
Oh, really? Oh, you know what? I haven't gone over. That's why. We're in the general room. Okay, so they're in there. That's perfect. I will hop over there because I will also post. Okay, perfect. Brad already posted the question for the teams to consider.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay, so Jen, Kimberly, things are going okay so far. Any immediate feedback? Based on the nature of this audience, are we doing okay?
Yeah, and I think everything looks good. Yeah, I was. Everything's fine on my end.
Okay.
Kimberly.
Hey.
Yeah, I have no problems. Right now, Brad gets a little bit screwy sometimes, like the sound does, but it's nothing that's impeding the content.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Jen, just a quick question for you. Do you know,
Yes.
like, in terms of the audience that's on,
Mhm.
what's their profile, or I mean, in terms of, what industries are they from and so forth? Are you able to, do you have that handy just to get a sense? Are they all sort of primarily in service, or, are they in different spaces?
I think a lot of them are with local municipalities or economic development organizations.
Okay.
Kimberly might recognize some of the names more than I do, but I think that's most of who our network is across our different organizations. So
Okay.
Yeah, there's
Like,
I'm just
are
looking
some
at the
people in
chat room.
financial? Because I know in others we've done, there's usually been a bunch from financial services, and some, of course, are entrepreneurs. They may run some franchisees and, just retail. And I always like to get a flavor of that so I can, better, customize some of my comments.
Yeah, I don't have the registration list in front of me, and because everyone's in the breakout rooms, I don't have the participant list either. So it's hard for me to tell right now.
Yeah, I'll have that. I'll send that to you. And for the next sessions, I'll have more lead time for those sessions to be out, and more time for registration. So next sessions, we're hoping that'll give people more time to register.
Okay. All right, cool. Okay, I'm going to hop into a couple of sessions here.
Okay.
Chat.
Thanks,
The one thing, Jen, I don't know if there's a timer on your breakout room screen at all right now. Maybe what we'll do is, so I see 9:35. So at 9:45,
Okay.
I'll just ask you to, because there's a button on your screen somewhere in breakout to say, to give everybody the 1-minute warning to kind of close the breakouts.
Okay.
Just take a look at that, because then we'll shut her down and then get them to come back and report out.
I have a button that says broadcast message to all. Maybe.
Okay, yeah, that'll send them a message, and yeah, you could do that maybe at 9:45. But
Okay.
then, is there not another button that says close breakouts or something like that?
I have the broadcast message to all and then close all rooms.
Yeah. So what we'll do is, after you shoot that broadcast, and then you can hit close all rooms, and then that'll tell them to get back within 60 seconds.
Okay.
Awesome. Thanks.
Thank you. There's a bit of an uneven number in the two rooms. Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, that's what I noticed. I was going to hop into the other one to see if see how far along Brad is. Let's see here. I know that shoot. Okay, I got to go back. I know there's a way for me to join the other room here. Let me go back in.
Do you want me to move you to that room?
Hey, Ken, you're muted.
Okay, well, I think, we're back. So, Brad, would you like to go first, or
Sure. Actually,
or
for
your
our
team?
group,
Sorry.
Bree's going to kind of share the insights from our conversation. Bree?
All right.
Yeah, you bet. So we had a spectrum. We had everything from people who are doing job seeking to people who have boxing clubs in our group. So we had lots of variety of answers and different higher risk potentials in the group. I think some of the big things were less of the areas that they do have control over with their own teams and things like that, or the own environments that they can contain, but more all of the things of having potentially someone on site who isn't following proper protocols or wearing their proper PPE, were some of those higher risk spaces for our group. Yeah, and then just a really vacillating kind of experience when we have someone who has a boxing club and they're trying to serve some of their members who can't afford their own equipment and things like that. So then how do they manage the cleaning and the maintenance of their area? And they're doing everything that they can, but still finding that they have some challenges around that. I think I've summed it up. Brad, if I missed anything, please feel free to add it.
No, I think that's excellent. The one thing in the discussion, I think, was that aspect of non-conformance, because we talk about the protocol around, high risk interaction points, people coming in, us going to other people's offices. But, I guess the secondary one is what happens, because your risk escalates when somebody's not conforming. And what's our protocol around that?
Yeah.
So that's all.
Great. Well, that's an interesting one. I mean, the boxing piece, obviously close contact and full contact. But when we get to fixes, I mean, we'll maybe consider a couple of dimensions there. And the second group, Robert.
Yeah, I'm going to cover off the ones, and before I get into the ones that we discussed in our group, it just occurred to me with that example of the boxing. I also teach scuba diving, and some of the skills that you deal with in scuba diving, you have to exchange gear, and you have to use somebody else's or parts of other people's gear. So we have actually had to consider what to do with that, and we've changed our entire teaching protocols around how we deal with that, so that there is no potential contamination, or we minimize the chance for potential contamination. Having said that, going to leap into the discussion we had, which is we had a very small group, so it was intimate, but the four things came out in our discussion was right now there would normally be a high chance of interaction between individuals in one of the person's jobs, but because of COVID, they've actually eliminated the person-to-person meeting, the intimate person-to-person meeting. However, that will resume at some point. So they have to give consideration to what they're going to do when they meet people in person. And the other one is when traveling, whether it's international traveling or even local traveling, you have to consider, okay, am I traveling by myself? Am I traveling with somebody? If I'm traveling with somebody, what do I have to do in regards to mitigating or minimizing the potential for any contamination? And what are the things you can do to pre-screen potentially so that you don't actually get in the situation where it happens? So we talked a little bit about, do you have a pre-screening protocol for people that are coming in to meet with you and things like that, but especially if there is group activities going on. And another one that came out from the other participant was handling and hygiene, the individuals in the agricultural business and the concern about harvesting the crop, handling the crop, and what do you do with respect to potential contamination of crop in regards to the protocols. So we talked a little bit about what part of the protocols would be, and also discussed that in this particular case, the harvest is going to be cooked. So that's going to mitigate in many cases the chance of contamination, but there's still the cross-contamination possibility from handling and what to do around that.
Great. Thanks for that, Robert. I mean, another interesting, scenario, right, around, higher risk potentials and interactions. So great. Thanks, team. Let's shift gears now from finding to fixing. So, what are we going to do about some of these, or what are some considerations in terms of controlling, exposures and risks, right? So I'm going to share this sort of this controls hierarchy with you. I'll touch on a few things and then sort of to frame it, and then we can kind of go from there. What you see here is, a very typical hierarchy of controls diagram that is used quite commonly in our HSE profession, right? And the idea is the controls that are higher up, the top side controls, are typically more effective at addressing your particular risks. And then the other sort of high level theme is combined together, meaning multiple layers of controls. When you're folding in more than one, typically allows more protection and better controls. If you can imagine a Swiss cheese in different holes, hazards going through, but some of the pieces of cheese will block it, right? If you have multiple layers. Here from the most effective to the least effective, the top, the elimination control, that's sort of physically removing a hazard, and the COVID situation that could apply, and that is either screening, right, or even tightening your bubbles, right, to minimize or eliminate the potential for infection. The next level down is substitution. Replace the hazard or replace the activity. Think of cash exchanges, right? Transitioning that from contactless payments, or again, face-to-face meetings to remote meetings, right? And then engineering controls. This is where there's some physical designed controls or barriers. The example you'll see there, from plexiglass barriers that we're all familiar with, to just even rearranging workspaces or spaces or workflows or people flows, to one that is getting a little more visibility now. But I know back in April, May, when I was really emphasizing this, it was less of a focus, but increasing ventilation, or looking at different ways to control sort of the air to minimize transmission. And then the fourth is administrative controls. These last two, really, the administrative controls require somebody to do something. So it's really dependent on behaviors, right? And so you're familiar with physical distancing and hand hygiene. Those things are important, but they also, I think, Brad was mentioning about compliance, right? It's heavily reliant on people following the rules or complying, right? And that's why they're typically less effective, right? And then lastly, the last time of defense, personal protective equipment worn basically at the interface by the individual, right? Needed when you can't get some space, when the other things maybe don't work, but important, but also at the same time by itself less effective versus when you can layer on some of the other stuff. So there you have it. And I'd like you to keep that sort of that model in mind when you think about your high risk activities. I'm going to pause there. Maybe in the chat I'll ask folks, where do you, or where, be it sort of what you hear in the media, what you hear, where do you see a lot of energy and focus spent? Where do you see the most spent? Just, whether it's engineering controls, whether it's substitution, whether it's PPE, share some thoughts in the chat, okay? And we'll maybe come back to that in a second. Brad, if you can monitor that maybe and share some when we got a few responses. Yeah, let us know what you're most familiar with in terms of controls.
Okay, so Bree talks about admin, replacing screening and admin controls. Mm-hmm. It's been changing as the pandemic has evolved. I think as practices have evolved, and awareness and behaviors I find have changed. Substitution.
Okay. Well, good. I mean, that's what we're hoping, right? But I'd definitely say, earlier in the pandemic, there was a ton of focus on this, right? Like, I mean, it's important, like PPE is important, especially if you're like in the healthcare industry and certain things, right? But as you can see, right, if you can get more layers in there, that's when you're going to fortify your controls better. Okay. So, hey, so then, how do you go about sort of, the higher risk activities you identified in breakout 1, right? List them here, and then start thinking about, what are the controls going across the hierarchy here that would make most sense and that would be practicable, right? For your activities. So that's how you can start to sort of zero in. We were talking, I think, with Leslie about, hey, it can be very overwhelming if you just sort of think of, well, I've got this event and I got to figure out how to, protect 50 people and the people who work here. But as you zero in on some specific tasks, it becomes, more manageable and actionable when you start to think about tasks. These 2-3 tasks, these are the few things that makes the most sense. And let's make sure we don't just rely on PPE and that's the end of the story. And we can consider some of these others, right? So that's how you can start to formulate some of your controls. Look at the guidance, but also maybe even, push yourself to look at some of the stuff up higher, because those are even going to help you more and they'll give you better payback for your efforts. Okay, so that's kind of fixing. That's the, that's the model that you can consider, beyond looking at straight guidance when you want to go, think about what makes the most sense for my activity, right? And so what I wanted to go to next with the third theme around thriving, because yes, we definitely need to protect our people just to survive. We need to protect our people to meet some minimum requirements, right? But what I'd like people to think about too is, you're also trying to run a business, you're trying to recover revenue, you're trying to maybe, depending on where you are, maybe grow your business in this environment because there's some opportunity. So that's the first thing I ask you to do when you think about thriving through people protection is, what are those activities, right? I borrowed this chart. You'll hear more of it from Brad in the growth marketing sessions, but what are the things that you've identified, the 2 or 3 things that you've identified, not necessarily people protection related, but business related, that you're really wanting to get after before the end of the year, right? Is it around, some strategy around repositioning your brand? Is it, transitioning to digital channels or enhancing them? Or is it some productivity? Are there ways to drive costs down and drive greater efficiency? Or are you looking to improve the customer experience more? And this is where I'd say, I know personally, like, there's certain operations that I feel safer shopping at, and I go there and I will drive further to go there, right? What are some of those things? And I guess for yourself, what I'm asking you to do is, after considering those, take the hierarchy, take the controls, the list that you have, bump it up against this stuff. What are some things that you may, that you may not be leveraging to bolster the customer experience, for example? If there's some things that you're already doing that you're maybe just not taking credit for, or, sharing and communicating, because it really does matter. And I think we saw it with a couple of our sessions, one with Cobb's Bread and certain things where they were doing things that, I think allowed some of their customers to really maybe, pick them over, a big box. So what are some of those things, especially the things that are up higher on the top side? Because I think those can help you differentiate more than the basic stuff that everybody's doing. Okay, not that these aren't important, but collectively, they can give you a leg up. Because with that, after you bump that up, I'd say then look at, are you doing these things? If you are, then are you connecting the dots to, hey, we've increased our ventilation. We do a few other things here to ensure where, the space the customers come in, it's all positive pressure and all the fresh air goes out. What are those things that make sense for you to either connect some dots or position, their experience with you, that you've already invested in it. You just need to highlight it and surface it. Because I'll tell you, the big guys do this. Amazon was recently ranked number 2 as Forbes' world's best employer. And if you recall from one of my first slides about, people really rating workplace protection high, right, around retention, no doubt they've done some good things. They've got cameras there where they can actually identify spacing, right? And then use that as a teaching tool to go back to the team around, hey guys, not the entrances, but actually our cafeteria areas is where we're seeing a lot of encroachment. So let's make sure we maintain the space. So they're using technology to do that. They've increased some testing, they've ramped up some stuff. They have some resources, obviously, right? But, but they've really, recognized that, this matters, taking the good things they're doing around COVID response. And, there's some other aspects, including social responsibility and conscious business, right? And using it to their advantage. And, they believe, and they publish this, that part of their activities around COVID response, helped them elevate to number 2 in the world. Okay. So think about that. And I'm not suggesting it has to be, complicated. I'm just suggesting look at it, bump it up. There's some few things that may make a difference in how you position, your services, your products. Then try it. Safe to try. Okay.
Can I add a couple points on that?
Absolutely.
So, on this, I think one of the things you can almost look at this, put on your entrepreneurial hat, and you can look at this situation as being a real opportunity in a sense. There is a silver lining around what's happening right now, because in how you react to this, in taking that extra effort and putting in some of that extra thought to protect your people, it is the right thing to do. But there's a huge opportunity here, because if you communicate it, if you leverage doing the right thing, it can absolutely be a huge differentiator in 2 key areas. One, internally. So, and again, communicate. So internally, your people realizing that you are going that extra mile to protect them. This tells them your actions speak way louder than your words. This tells them, but you still do need to use your words, because then if your words and your actions align, it gives you integrity with your staff. It makes them feel you care about them. If you communicate, make sure it's 2-way communication. You're getting their feedback and you're creating a loop and a dialogue, and this gets them more engaged. So there's great potential benefit. And they tell their friends, and they say, I've got friends in their offices, they're kind of nervous, and somebody's had a case and they don't know what to do, and blah, blah, blah. Well, for us, we have little safety huddles once a week where people share ideas and they give us the latest and greatest news and so on. And so as an employer, it can be a big differentiator. And then externally, you gave the example of Cobb's Bread. So my kids work at the local IGA, and they do have somebody at the door, but they really haven't trained them much. They're all young, they're teenagers, etc. And they're kind of there, and they hand you a wipe and whatever. And I would say it's marginal value. Cobb's Bread, which was in one of our other workshops for one of the other regions, and they've got somebody at the door, but they have a complete little package speech. So before somebody comes in, they explain the protection protocols, what's expected, how we're dealing with this. So it saved them having people come in and non-conform, and then other shoppers in the store being really, really uncomfortable. And they've got masks there, so they say, please help us with this. Help protect other people. If you've forgotten your mask, don't have a mask here. We have a mask for you, but we really want to protect you. We care about you and our staff. So they've got a little speech, and you know what? Their customer loyalty is through the roof. People are coming to them specifically because they've communicated what they're doing, and they've really built that comfort factor for their customers, and it I'd say is given them definitely a competitive advantage. It's differentiated them.
Yeah. Great, thanks, Brad. And I'd say, it doesn't have to be all mapped out, right? It's safe to try. You work with the team, right, on brainstorming. Hey, let's try this, let's try that, and it empowers them, right? And we know in terms of managing stress, it's how you react and some abilities to have some control and autonomy, right, around it. So I think there's a lot of pluses to having an open dialogue about how you can get creative about top side controls. Okay, so Brad. Okay, so the next exercise, and it's a bit of a two-parter, Brad. It's one around a control and then one around a connection.
Okay, so Ken, basically we're going through the same process again. I'm posting in the chat the questions. So Jen's going to break us out into our groups. we're going to go through the same process. This time, I do want you to take the full 2 minutes because the question is a little more involved. Beyond the basic controls, identify one effective topside engineering or creative control that you can apply to your higher potential exposure. And how can you use this to be a differentiator? So there's 2 parts to this. One, what is a higher level of control that applies to your risk? And 2, how can you use this to differentiate and actually be advantageous for your organization? So those are the 2 questions I want you to think about. Write down your thoughts as we're kind of getting the groups set up and as we jump into our groups, and then we'll have a discussion.
Great.
Okay. Jen, do you want to
Okay, Jen.
launch the groups?
Yeah, I'll do that. Same groups as before?
Yep.
Okay.
Excellent.
So I think Wendy and SLA, you'll need to join your groups. You should have a window that's popped up and you just hit join.
Yeah, yeah, I still have just not joined by their names.
I think, Jen, you might be able to just put them in there.
Okay,
Can't
let
remember.
me see.
I can't remember the, well, let me see.
No, I only have the option to move them to the other room.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, hey, Wendy, you should have a window that popped up that says breakout rooms on your screen. And then you just click the blue button that says join breakout room. Huh.
No, I don't know if I can make her join the room or not. 1 second.
You can try to make me join, then we'll, as a test. And then we'll know.
Yeah, it just lets me move you to the breakout room 1.
Oh, okay. And then, well, oh, there they go.
Oh, there she is. Okay. And yeah.
And SLA, I think that's Donna, if I'm not mistaken. Are you able to join the breakout room? Did you end up moving Wendy, or did she do it herself?
I think she did it herself.
Because what you might be able to do with SLA, I suppose, is move her to 1 and then move her again to 2.
Let's do that. And then move back to 2.
Oh, you know what? I wonder, it only moves them to that room, but they still have to hit join to go.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, she might be disconnected right now. So
Maybe.
good.
I'll just send her a private message. No, maybe they're just away from their
Yeah.
keyboard. Is this one 20 minutes as well?
Yeah, so like 15 minutes out, we should, when do we figure we started it? Oh, yeah, because we need to wrap. So let's, let me see here. I'll just double check. I don't know how much of a wrap Kimberly needs. But okay, so we've got 18 minutes. Why don't we do, yeah, let's do in 10 minutes from now. So maybe at 10:22,
Sure.
and we'll report out and then,
I really probably won't need too long, just a few minutes at the end.
yeah, okay. 'Cause I've got, yeah, a couple of slides and then some Q&A. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, and what I'll do is I'll pop in there and pop back. I'll see how they're going, because sometimes like if 2 or 3 people haven't had a chance to share, then we stretch it out a little bit longer.
Okay.
Okay, I'll be back.
Sure.
Hey, Jen.
Hi.
Yeah. The group one got an additional, Leslie got, oh, you know what? You moved her to group one and we didn't move her back to group
Oh,
two,
no.
but it's okay. She's going right now. It's okay. So let's give them,
Another couple minutes.
yeah, let's do it at 10:24 because then we'll come back. It's 10:25 and then we'll have 5 minutes.
Okay, so move Leslie to group 2.
No. Just leave her. She's talking
leave
right now.
Okay.
So, but they're kind of finishing up with her, and let's when it hits 10:24, let's do the closed breakout rooms.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, how is this? I mean, since we got a minute, so how's this session compared to sort of some of the other sessions that you guys have run? I'm sure I heard you run a whole bunch. I mean,
We've done quite a few this year, and registration, and they've been all kinds of topics. Registration is all over the board, from a dozen like this one to, I don't know, I think we had one session where we had 50 or 60 or so. So
okay.
I don't remember which one that was, but that was back when we first started the regional resilience.
Yeah.
That was right at the beginning. So I think
Yeah.
that was when people were, still what's going on, what's happening.
Yeah.
And yeah, it just seems to be all over the board. All of our
Okay.
organizations are sort of promoting it through our own networks. So
Okay. Yeah.
it seems to be, I don't know, hit or miss, however, how many people we
Okay.
get.
Okay. All right. If you can shut her down, get them to come
Okay.
back, please.
There you go. Excellent.
All right. Welcome back. So let's do our report outs here. We'll try to keep it to a minute per group so we get a couple of minutes to wrap. So Robert, you want to go first? Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, we'll let Kimberly, she's going to be our spokesperson. Oh, yeah, Kimberly's going to be our spokesperson.
Yeah. Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you for the conversation. We had Robert and Wendy in our group. And so we were talking about the engineered controls, and by happenstance, Kate was already doing it because Megan and I moved into one larger office, and we have two large desks that have 6-foot backings to them. So they go back to back. And what we do, so that divides us up, and we also have 2 separate doors. So we're able to come in and out of our own doors when I'm not working from home. So right now I work primarily from home and Megan works in the office. But when we are in the office together, that's what we do. And then of course, you all know that we're co-located with Community Futures. And maybe Jen will add to this, I'm not sure. But there we have some processes in place in terms of cleaning protocols on an ongoing basis, like 3 times a day and that. We also had Wendy in our group, and she's a small Hascap farmer. And she's at that stage where, she doesn't have enough to warrant the investment in engineered controls and machinery to keep people away from each other. And so we talked about creating a cooperative and tapping into Alberta cooperatives, community cooperatives, and perhaps being able to facilitate as a larger group equipment that could be shared amongst Hascat farmers.
Yeah, with the focus on the harvesting piece being an issue there because of the close contact between people. So looking at machinery that can harvest, maybe creating a cooperative to acquire it.
Great. Any just quick thoughts on sort of connecting to a differentiator in your discussions? Was the cooperative somewhat that as well, sort of, getting together and maybe promoting?
Well, that's what they're going to explore.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
And the other thing too that we came to recognize that Zoom is actually an engineered control. So.
Okay, Brad. One
Jessica?
fix and one connection.
Can I get you to share kind of your thoughts from our discussion? You're muted.
Hi. So there are some people in our group that had some great implementations in place, such as Darlene. So it sounds like she's a government organization that has the money to basically structure a lot of these requirements to engineer controls and creative controls. Bree with the city also has a lot of controls in place, as well as through their sporting facilities and what the protocols need to be followed for there. I myself with the boxing club have a lot of things that I need to work on for engineering controls. Basically, we've been doing the screening and the mostly the admin controls. So yeah, our group had some great discussion with that. Brad, I don't know if you want to add to that.
Nope. I guess we're kind of out of time here, but I was hoping that, did you get any ideas in terms of things since you're building out your new facility? Any ideas in terms that you can kind of take back and incorporate into what you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. Just this week, I found out that we've received 5 grants. So with applying with that, I have funds to put into different areas of a new facility. And due to COVID, I'm going to be looking at things differently that maybe I didn't initially think of. So yeah, I have a lot of things to implement and think of that could help. Yeah, definitely.
Excellent.
Great. Thank you.
Hey, Ken,
So,
thank
hey,
you.
yeah, thanks. So just to wrap, I mean, just around sustaining considerations, right? The whatever it is that you've taken away, whatever morsel, right, that you're going to try, right? Consider, embedding it into your existing processes, whether it's screening at sign-in, whether it's cleaning, checks during inspections or monitoring, or, as a part of whatever you're thinking about in terms of external comms. Are there any safety benefits? I just encourage you to do that to make it sort of stick, right? Another just quick note, if for whatever reason you've got some needs for sort of respiratory protection, just recognize that there's some additional requirements tied to N95s and the like for your applications. And I would leave you with how we started. I think protecting people, doing it right, really can protect people and bolster and differentiate your business. And then on reflections, these were some of the 4 questions we had asked at the start. I've provided some links for some additional tools, and and if you want to chat further with anybody on the team just on anything in particular as well, happy to do that. And Q&A and wrap. So I mean, are there any burning questions? If not, I'd hand it back over to Kimberly to wrap.
Thanks, Ken.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, hearing no question. Oh, will you be sharing the presentation and the links?
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, we'll definitely be sharing the presentation.
I just loaded into the chat.
Yeah, I just realized the Mastermind peer groups thing. Brad, was this something you wanted to comment on, or was Kimberly going to touch on it real quick?
It's all Brad's.
We're running it. It's in the presentation. We're going to be running it on the 5th. The invite's there, and you don't have to participate to participate in the Mastermind. So please come. Bring a friend.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's great and really an opportunity to help each other. learn from each other. So, okay, go ahead, Kimberly.
Yeah, so, okay, great. There's the contact information for Brad, Robert, and Ken, as well as the the team at Regional Resilience. Thanks for putting that up. The peer-to-peer is a very interesting group. Maybe you guys can help me just explain it a little bit to the participants that are on the line right now. But it's where you come in together and you have a couple of burning questions and you work together with the other businesses that are on the line to come to some sort of conclusion or solution of what the problems are. So there's a lot of engagement available there, and networking, as well as learning from each other. And, you know, I think, in my opinion, that's the best way to learn, is to learn from each other.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, so that is coming up shortly, and you will see the invitations coming out. You do need to register for that. So if there aren't any questions, I do note that Bree is going to put up the recording, and it will be on the CAPE website as well. I want to thank you, gentlemen, so very much for taking the time today to come and join Central Alberta businesses and organizations to share in your executive knowledge and your change processes. It's been a very informative session, and we look forward to connecting with you on an ongoing basis over the next few months.
Awesome. Thank you very
Perfect.
much.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone.
everybody. Thanks for the engagement. It's fun.
Have a fantastic day.
Thank you. You too.